My mom practiced fake tears in my apartment while planning to steal it. Hidden cameras caught everything. Hey friends! Got a sec? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. It's quick for you, but it really means a lot to the channel. Alright, let's dive into today's story. Original post. I'm sitting here at 2 a.m., eyes burning from editing photos for 12 hours straight, and my phone won't stop buzzing with messages from my mother. Each notification feels like another weight added to my chest, and I don't know how much more I can take. I'm a wildlife photographer, been doing this professionally for 8 years now. After years of sleeping in tents and cheap hostels, I finally saved enough to rent a small studio apartment in the city. It's nothing fancy, just 600 square feet with good natural light and enough space for my equipment. But it's mine, and it's where I process the thousands of photos that actually pay my bills. My mother is a wellness coach. She runs workshops about toxic energy and creating healthy boundaries, which would be ironic if it wasn't so frustrating. She's built her entire career on teaching others about emotional health while systematically destroying mine. My younger sister works as a receptionist at a dental office. She's been living with our mother since dropping out of college 6 years ago. The current situation started 3 months ago. My sister apparently developed severe anxiety, or so my mother claims. According to her, my sister needs a safe space to recover, and somehow my studio apartment has been designated as the only possible solution. Not their 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. Not any of the dozens of rental properties in our city. My specific apartment. The manipulation started subtly. First, it was casual mentions during family dinners. Your sister's been having such a hard time lately. Then came the comparisons. When you were struggling with your career, we all supported you. Never mind that my support consisted of them telling me to give up photography and get a real job. Last week, the guilt trips escalated. My mother called me selfish for hoarding space, while my sister suffered. She said I was choosing my hobby over family. Photography isn't my hobby, it's my livelihood. I have contracts with 3 nature magazines, a pending National Geographic submission, and a gallery showing next spring. But to her, it's just playing with cameras. Tonight's messages are particularly cruel. She's claiming my sister had a panic attack at work and had to leave early. The texts alternate between concern for my sister and accusations about my character. A real brother would help without hesitation. I raised you better than this. Your father would be ashamed. My father passed away 5 years ago, and she knows invoking his memory destroys me. The thing is, I've helped my sister before. 2 years ago, I paid 3 months of her car payments when she claimed she couldn't afford them. I later found out she'd spent that money on concert tickets and designer bags. When I confronted her, my mother defended her, saying my sister needed joy in her life, and I was being judgmental. I've also noticed patterns. My sister's emergencies always coincide with something positive in my life. When I got my first magazine cover, she suddenly needed surgery funds. When I started dating my now ex-girlfriend, she developed a mysterious illness that required my constant attention. This time, it's right before my biggest assignment yet, a 6-week expedition to document endangered species in Madagascar. My mother keeps insisting it would be temporary, but she won't define what that means. When I ask for specifics about my sister's treatment plan or timeline, she gets defensive. You're interrogating a sick person, she says. When I offered to help pay for therapy instead, she said I was throwing money at the problem instead of showing real love. The apartment isn't just where I live, it's where I work. My computer setup alone is worth more than my car. I have thousands of dollars in cameras, lenses, and equipment stored here. My external drives contain years of work, some of it irreplaceable. I've built relationships with editors who expect professional quality and timely delivery. I can't risk any of that. I'm exhausted. Not just from tonight, but from years of this dynamic. Every boundary I set gets trampled. Every success I achieve gets overshadowed by manufactured drama. I love my family, but I'm starting to realize that love shouldn't require self-destruction. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to believe my sister really needs help, but I've been burned too many times. Another part recognizes this pattern and knows I need to protect myself. But the guilt is eating me alive. My mother has already told extended family that I'm refusing to help my sick sister, and I'm getting messages from aunts and cousins I haven't spoken to in years. I keep staring at these half-edited photos of birds in flight, and I envy their freedom. They don't have mothers who weaponize love or sisters who see them as resources to exploit. They just spread their wings and go wherever they need to be. Update 1, 2 weeks later. I need to update this because what I discovered has shaken me to my core. After my original post, Many of you suggested installing security cameras in my apartment. I initially resisted. It felt paranoid and extreme. But after my mother showed up unannounced 3 times in 1 week, each time with different emergencies requiring immediate entry, I realized I needed to protect myself and my property. I installed hidden cameras in my living room and entrance area. Nothing in private spaces, just enough to monitor any unauthorized entry. I also changed my locks after discovering my mother still had a copy of my key from when I first moved in. She'd been letting herself in to check on things while I was away on shoots. What the cameras captured last Tuesday will haunt me forever. I was on a day's shoot 2 hours outside the city, photographing migrating hawks for an Audubon Society publication. My mother knew I'd be gone. I'd mentioned it during our last phone call when she was pressuring me again about my sister moving in. Around 2 p.m., my phone alerted me to motion in my apartment. The footage showed my mother and sister entering with a spare key they'd apparently had copied before I changed the locks. They must have gotten an impression or something because they walked in like they owned the place. What happened next was surreal. My sister, who supposedly couldn't function due to severe anxiety, was laughing and taking photos of my apartment. She was measuring walls, discussing where she'd put her furniture, and planning which of my things she'd throw out. "His equipment can go in that closet," she said, pointing to my tiny bathroom storage. "I need the main room for my meditation space." My mother was taking notes on her phone, occasionally chiming in with suggestions. "We'll tell him it's medically necessary for her to have natural light exposure," she said. "If he resists, I'll contact Dr. Chen about writing a letter. She owes me a favor." Then came the part that made my blood run cold. They started discussing their plan to fake a medical emergency. My sister would have a severe panic attack at a family gathering next week. My mother had already arranged for her wellness coach friends to be there as witnesses. They'd call an ambulance, create a scene, and use the hospital documentation to guilt me into compliance. "Once I'm in for a few weeks, he won't be able to kick me out," my sister said, scrolling through her phone. I looked up tenant laws. "After 30 days, I'll have rights." They spent an hour in my apartment, going through my belongings, mocking my photography, and planning their manipulation. My sister tried on my jacket and took selfies. My mother went through my mail. They helped themselves to food from my refrigerator, complaining about my boring, healthy choices. Before leaving, my mother stood in my doorway and actually practiced her devastated mother speech. She rehearsed lines about my sister's suffering, my selfishness, and how she'd failed as a mother to raise such a heartless son. She even practiced crying, checking her reflection in my mirror to perfect her distressed expression. I sat in my car at the nature preserve, watching this footage on my phone, and threw up. The calculated cruelty, the casual violation of my space, the mockery of my career, it was overwhelming. But worse was realizing how many times they'd probably done this before. How many of my sister's crises had been rehearsed. How many of my mother's tears had been practiced in a mirror. I drove home immediately, my hands shaking the entire way. When I arrived, everything was exactly as I'd left it that morning, as if they'd never been there. If I hadn't had the cameras, I would never have known. I've saved all the footage to multiple secure drives and cloud storage. I've also documented everything, dates, times, their exact words. I've started researching lawyers and looking into restraining orders. Several of you mentioned that what they're doing could constitute fraud, conspiracy, and harassment. You were right. The family gathering they mentioned is this weekend. I'm supposed to attend, not knowing about their plan. They expect me to watch my sister's performance, see my mother's practice tears, and cave under the pressure of family judgment. They've already invited relatives they know will take their side, people who've always seen me as the difficult one who moved away and chose career over family. I'm not going to that gathering. I've decided to cut contact temporarily while I figure out my next steps. I've blocked their numbers and social media, though I'm still monitoring any public posts for evidence. My mother has already started posting about family members who abandon you in your time of need, and my sister is sharing quotes about toxic people who don't support your healing journey. The irony isn't lost on me. My mother, the wellness coach who preaches about healthy boundaries, has been systematically violating mine for years. My sister, claiming to need my space for anxiety recovery, is actively planning to steal it through fraud. I've started looking for apartments in other cities. My work is portable. I can photograph wildlife anywhere. Maybe it's time to migrate, like the birds I photograph. Find a new territory, far from predators disguised as family. Update 2-3 weeks later. The situation has exploded beyond anything I could have imagined. After skipping the family gathering, I received over 50 messages from various relatives, all condemning me for abandoning my sister during her medical emergency. The performance went ahead as planned, complete with an ambulance call and a brief hospital visit. My aunt sent me photos of my mother sobbing in the hospital waiting room, holding my sister's hand. What they didn't know was that I'd already contacted a lawyer and filed a police report for breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and harassment. The lawyer, Ms. Martinez, specializes in family law and fraud cases. When she viewed the camera footage, she immediately recognized the severity of the situation. We sent a cease and desist letter to both my mother and sister, along with copies of the video evidence. The letter detailed their recorded conspiracy, the planned fraud, and the illegal entry into my apartment. It also warned them that any further contact or attempts to access my property would result in immediate legal action. My mother's response was swift and vicious. She showed up at my apartment building at 6 a.m., screaming in the hallway about ungrateful children and threatening to destroy my career. She told my neighbors I was mentally unstable, that I'd fabricated evidence, and that I was holding her daughter's belongings hostage. Building security had to escort her out, and I added that footage to my growing file of evidence. She then pivoted to professional attacks. She contacted the magazines I work for, claiming I was having a mental breakdown and couldn't be trusted with assignments. She posted in photography forums that I was unprofessional and unstable. She even reached out to the National Geographic editor reviewing my submission, concerned about my mental state. Fortunately, I'd already informed my professional contacts about the situation, providing them with a basic explanation and my lawyer's contact information. Most were supportive, having dealt with their own family dramas. The National Geographic editor actually called me personally, expressing sympathy and assuring me the submission would be judged solely on its merits. My sister tried a different approach. She posted a GoFundMe claiming she needed funds for mental health treatment after her brother evicted her during a health crisis. She included photos from her staged hospital visit and a creative fiction about how I'd promised her a place to stay, then cruelly rescinded it when she needed it most. The fundraiser gained traction in local community groups where my mother had connections. This forced me to take an action I'd hoped to avoid. I posted the security camera footage publicly, along with a detailed timeline of events. The video of them planning the fake emergency, mocking my career, and discussing tenant fraud went viral in our community. The GoFundMe was taken down within hours, and my sister faced immediate backlash. The professional consequences for my mother were severe. Several clients who'd seen the footage canceled their wellness coaching appointments. Her reputation as someone who taught healthy boundaries and authentic living was destroyed when people saw her rehearsing fake tears in my apartment. The wellness center where she rented space terminated her contract, citing ethical violations. The legal consequences are still unfolding. The district attorney's office has opened an investigation into the conspiracy to commit fraud. The fake emergency room visit, which wasted hospital resources and involved false insurance claims, elevated the charges beyond simple family drama. My sister is facing potential fraud charges, and my mother could be charged as a co-conspirator. During this chaos, I've continued working. There's something therapeutic about sitting in nature, waiting for the perfect shot. Wildlife doesn't lie or manipulate. A hawk hunts because it needs to eat, not because it enjoys causing suffering. Predators and prey follow natural laws, not manufactured drama. I've also found unexpected support. Other photographers have reached out with their own stories of family exploitation. One told me about a brother who tried to claim partial ownership of her work because she'd used his computer once. Another shared how his parents had sold his prints without permission, claiming family shares everything. The apartment search in other cities has progressed. I found a perfect space in a city 8 hours away, close enough to drive back for major assignments, far enough to discourage unexpected visits. It has a dedicated studio space, better light than my current place, and it's actually cheaper. The building has excellent security and explicitly requires written permission for all visitors. Update 3, 2 months later. I'm writing this final update for my new apartment, watching the sun set over unfamiliar mountains through my studio windows. The last 2 months have been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, professional changes, and personal growth. The criminal case against my mother and sister moved forward faster than expected. The prosecutor, after reviewing the security footage and their social media posts, filed charges for conspiracy to commit fraud, filing a false insurance claim, and harassment. The fake emergency room visit was particularly damaging to their case. They'd involved medical professionals in their scheme and wasted emergency resources. My mother tried to negotiate a plea deal, but her arrogance undermined her. She insisted she'd done nothing wrong, that she was just trying to help her daughter, and that I was the real criminal for recording them without their knowledge. Her lawyer apparently had to explain repeatedly that entering someone's home without permission negates any expectation of privacy. The Wellness Coaching Board revoked her certification after an ethics review. The footage of her practicing fake tears while planning to manipulate her son was deemed conduct unbecoming of a wellness professional. She's also facing civil lawsuits from former clients who feel she misrepresented herself. One client revealed that my mother had used our family situation as an example of healing toxic relationships in her workshops, even while actively planning the fraud. My sister pled guilty to misdemeanor charges in exchange for probation and community service. She's required to attend actual therapy, court-mandated, not the performative kind she'd been claiming. The therapist reports to the court, so she can't fake her way through it. She's also been ordered to pay restitution for the emergency services she misused. The family fallout has been extensive but revealing. Some relatives, after seeing the evidence, apologized for believing the lies. Others doubled down, insisting that family should forgive everything, and that I'm destroying the family over minor disagreements. I've learned that the family members quickest to demand unconditional forgiveness are often the ones with the most to hide. My aunt, who'd sent those hospital photos, reached out last week. She admitted she'd suspected something was off but went along with it to avoid becoming a target herself. She revealed years of similar manipulations she'd witnessed but never challenged. It was validating but also sad. How many people had enabled this behavior through silence? Professionally, my life has transformed. The National Geographic submission was accepted. My photos will be featured in a 6-page spread about endangered raptors. The editor mentioned that my unique perspective on predator-prey dynamics and ability to capture vulnerability within strength set my work apart. I couldn't help but think those insights came from very personal experiences. The move to the new city has been liberating. I've rented a studio space separate from my apartment, with proper equipment storage and a small gallery area. Next month, I'm hosting my first solo exhibition, Flight Patterns, a study in survival. The series documents birds escaping predators, their wings caught in that moment between danger and freedom. I've been working with a therapist who specializes in family trauma and manipulation. She's helped me understand that my mother's wellness coaching career was likely a form of projection, teaching others what she couldn't practice herself. My sister's learned helplessness was cultivated through years of enabling. And my role as the scapegoat who succeeded despite them threatened their narrative. The therapy has also helped me process the grief. Not just for the family I'm losing, but for the family I never actually had. The mother who practiced crying in my mirror was never the supportive parent I'd imagined she could become. The sister planning to steal my home was never the sibling companion I'd hoped for. I'm grieving illusions. I've started dating again, something I couldn't do while constantly managing family crises. She's a marine biologist who understands dedication to documenting nature. She's met my chosen family, the fellow photographers, the supportive editors, the mentor who taught me that art can be both beautiful and honest. She hasn't met my biological family, and she may never need to. Last week, I received a letter from my mother through her lawyer. She wanted me to know that she's lost everything: her certification, her reputation, her career. She blamed me for her downfall, saying I could have just given my sister the apartment and avoided all of this. Even now, she can't see that her own actions, meticulously recorded by her own hand, caused her consequences. I didn't respond. The birds I photograph don't engage with the storms that pass through their territory. They simply wait for clear skies, then continue their journey. That's what I'm doing now, continuing my journey under clearer skies. My new apartment has a small balcony where I've set up a bird feeder. Every morning, I watch sparrows and finches visit, their small dramas playing out in miniature. They squabble over seeds, establish pecking orders, and occasionally, one tries to claim the entire feeder as their territory. But nature has a way of maintaining balance. The greedy birds eventually learn that cooperation yields more than conflict. I sometimes wonder if my mother and sister will ever understand that lesson. The security footage showed them planning to take everything while giving nothing back. They saw my success as something to exploit rather than celebrate. They viewed my boundaries as obstacles rather than respect them. The gallery opening is next week. I've invited the people who've supported me through this journey: my lawyer, my therapist, my professional contacts who stood by me, and the new friends who know me without the context of my family drama. It's a smaller gathering than the family events I used to attend, but it's filled with people who actually want me to succeed. I've dedicated the exhibition to my late father. Despite my mother's claims about what he would think, I remember him differently. He was the one who bought me my first camera, who drove me to wildlife preserves at dawn, who said that capturing truth through a lens was its own form of honesty. I think he would understand why I had to fly away. The photographs in the exhibition all feature moments of escape: a hawk evading an eagle, a rabbit outmaneuvering a fox, a butterfly emerging from a spider's web. Each image captures that split second when prey becomes survivor, when the vulnerable find strength, when flight becomes freedom. That's what this whole experience has taught me. Sometimes, The greatest act of self-preservation is simply leaving. Not every predator announces itself with fangs and claws. Some come disguised as family, using love as a lure and guilt as a trap. But recognition is the first step to escape, and documentation is the proof that you weren't imagining the danger. My camera has always been my tool for capturing truth. This time, it captured a truth I needed to see, that the people who claimed to love me most were the ones causing me the most harm. The lens doesn't lie, even when we wish it would. As I finish this update, the mountain light is fading to purple, and the evening birds are beginning their twilight songs. Tomorrow, I leave for Madagascar for that delayed assignment. 6 weeks documenting endangered species fighting for survival. It feels appropriate somehow. I'll be photographing creatures who've adapted to threats, who've evolved defenses, who've learned that survival sometimes means leaving everything familiar behind. My mother was right about one thing: families should support each other. But support doesn't mean enabling destruction. Love doesn't require self-sacrifice. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is show someone the consequences of their actions, even if those consequences include losing you. The notification light on my phone hasn't blinked in hours. There are no more guilt-laden messages, no manufactured emergencies, no practiced tears demanding attention. There's just quiet and space, and the freedom to edit my photographs without the weight of someone else's expectations crushing my creativity. This is what peace feels like. This is what boundaries create. This is what happens when you stop being prey and finally take flight.